This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
According to diplomatic sources, Washington is preparing to reveal a Security Council draft resolution authorizing the deployment of UN peacekeeping forces in Somalia. The draft resolution, which is still in its preliminary phase, authorizes the UN to deploy peacekeeping forces in northeastern Somalia in order to protect the country's ports. In addition, it will ease arms restrictions imposed on Somalia in order to allow the interim government and the peacekeeping forces to obtain weapons through legal channels. It also called on the African Union and Eastern African nations to take part in the peacekeeping forces deployed in Somalia should the Security Council approve the draft resolution. Meanwhile, Sharif Ahmed, the head of the Executive Council for the Religious Courts in Mogadishu, said that the Ethiopian forces that are affiliated with the Tigray group have bombarded the Somali town of Benderli. Sharif made his announcement during a demonstration that was organized by the religious courts, accusing Ethiopia and other countries of meddling in Somali affairs and conspiring against the Islamic courts.
During a massive protest at the Tarboon Square in Mogadishu, the religious courts confirmed that the Ethiopian forces started to bomb Somali cities in the region of Mosaic, which is under the court's control.
The forces of Malays Newi that are affiliated with the Tigray group have shelled the town of Benderli, firing more than 12 mortar shells. Is Benderli an Ethiopian village? Does the presence of religious courts in Benderli pose a threat to Addis Ababa? Of course, the answer is no. Ethiopia does not want to see the Somali people achieve unity and reclaim their dignity and honor.
Somalis staged this protest to condemn Ethiopian intervention in their country's affairs, and they sent a message to Washington, who the religious courts accused of trying to give legitimacy to Ethiopia to occupy Somalia. The Somali religious courts vowed that they will seek the help of fighters from the Muslim world if the UN Security Council lifts the weapons ban imposed on the country.
If the UN Security Council approves a draft resolution to lift the weapons ban imposed on the country, we will ask Muslims to join the jihad, and we will open our borders to the mujahideen.
The carrying of weapons was not limited to Somali men. In an unprecedented move, Somali women carried weapons and took to the streets, vowing to join the fight.
I got this rifle to join the fight in order to defend my country and religion.
The religious courts announced that they will order the closure of schools and universities in the event of the actual battle breaking out.
I hereby announce to everyone that we will order the closure of schools, institutions, and universities so we can go and defend our nation and religion. Jihad, which is a religious duty, is mandatory to all Muslims.
Students from many local schools announced that they are willing to carry weapons and join the fight.
I call on everyone to join jihad. Religion is the most important thing in our lives, so we must defend it. Let's put our books down and go join the battle. God is great. God is great.
While Ethiopia hints that it will declare a war on Somalia, the religious courts vow to confront the invaders and continue to rally support among the public. Meanwhile, everyone is waiting for the countdown. Fahad Yassin, Al Jazeera, Mogadishu.
In another development, Eritrea has accused the United States of trying to create instability in Somalia because it wants to extend control in the African Horn and strengthen its military presence in the region. According to Eritrea's Minister of Information, Ali Abdo, the U.S. wants to put its foot in Somalia by providing a cover to Ethiopia's intervention and promoting the deployment of peacekeeping forces in the region.
The Bahraini Minister of Justice announced that the Wafaq National Islamic Society, headed by Ali Salman, won 16 seats in the parliament. With these election results, the Wafaq Society, the main Islamist opposition party in the country, has taken control of 40% of the parliamentary seats in the first round of elections.
The Islamist opposition has entered political life in Bahrain through a wide-open door, with hopes that it will play a vital and more active political role. The elements of this role were hinted at with the Bahrain Minister of Justice's announcement of the official results of the parliamentary elections. The opposition achieved a landslide victory with the election of 16 candidates out of 17 on the list of the Wafaq National Islamic Society.
The candidate who won in the 5th district is Abdul Ali Muhammad Hassan. The candidate who won in the 6th district is Sayyid Haidar Hassan Ali Hassan.
مرشحو الوفاق ال16 وعلى رأسهم الأمين العام للجمعية الشيخ علي 16 Wafaq candidates headed by the Secretary General of the Society, Sheikh Ali Salman, in addition to another independent Wafaq candidate, have secured their seats in the first round of elections. The 17th candidate will have a runoff election in the second round of elections at the beginning of December. 4 candidates from an opposition party, the National Democratic Workers' Society, which is in alliance with the Wafaq Society, will have runoff elections. With these results, the Wafaq Society will have dominated 40% of the parliamentary seats. This elected parliament works in tandem with an appointed council, the Shura Council, which has the same number of seats.
أن هذا المجلس المنتخب يقابله مجلس معين وهو مجلس الشورى وله العدد نفسه من المقاعد.
The king appoints 40 people who enjoy the same legislative authorities and jurisdictions. The king has major authority.
بالمقابل أظهرت النتائج الأولية تراجعا ملحوظا لمرشحي المنبر الوطني الإسلامي وهم من
The initial results demonstrated a notable weakening of the National Islamic Symposium Party, which includes the Muslim Brotherhood and a Salah Society made up of Salafis. The National Islamic Symposium only won 5 seats and 7 of their candidates have moved into a second round of elections. With these results, the opposition is now concerned about fraud after a report was released by the former government advisor, Salah al-Bandar, which created a wave of protests by the opposition. 72% of the population took part in these elections, which reflects the actual opposition's participation in contrast to the 2002 general elections, when the opposition boycotted. The results also reflected the rising tide of the Islamic movement in Bahrain. The lesson that the opposition has learned is that active participation through peaceful demonstrations or through engaging in elections can certainly be fruitful.
أن الفعل الإيجابي سواء في الاحتجاج السلمي أو المشاركة يثمر في مثل هذه الحالات.
Islamic Revolution leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei told Iraqi President Jalal Talibani Tuesday growing insecurity and mass killings in Iraq pose a challenge to regional countries and that Iran feels duty-bound to help its neighbor stabilize. The leader said those whipping up insecurity in Iraq are hiding behind an alleged Shiite-Sunni divide to weaken the democratic government in Iraq. The leader then blamed the current state of affairs on U.S. military planners, saying their policies in the region will fall flat. The Iraqi president in turn said if security situation changes hand in his country and Iraqis mobilized by their leaders take over the control of affairs, the security will make a comeback to the war-hit country. President Talibani also thanked Iran for helping fellow Muslims in Iraq over the past years. The Georgian Prime Minister says Tbilisi seeks to buy natural gas from Iran. Zurab Nogai said despite U.S. opposition to Iran-Georgia energy cooperation, gas procurement from Iran is the best option for Tbilisi. It came after remarks by U.S. Ambassador to Georgia, John Teft, who said Washington disapproves of strategic, long-term work between Tehran and Tbilisi on gas transfer. The ambassador said Georgia has another option forward. The U.S.-funded Shah Deniz project to find a reliable source for meeting its gas demands. Iran had pumped gas to Georgia on a temporary basis following a pipeline explosion back in January, which cut off Russian gas to the country for a while. And Damascus has called on Ankara to arrange for annual delivery of 2 to 3 billion cubic meters of Iran's natural gas from a transit pipeline which passes through the Turkish soil. Reuters, in a report, has quoted a Turkish energy official as saying senior Iranian, Turkish and Syrian officials are to discuss the issue in the near future. An Indian Petroleum Minister, Manish Shankar Ayar, announced on Tuesday India and Pakistan have rejected the proposed price by an international consultant group for Iran's natural gas upon delivery via IranIndia gas pipeline. New Delhi and Islamabad called for a fixed price for Iran's exported natural gas. However, Tehran demands a floating rate, that is 10% of the price of a barrel of North Sea Brent crude oil. Iran has proposed $7.2 per BT of natural gas, while India says they would not pay more than $4.25.
Iraq's President Jalal Talibani's visit to Iran came amidst mounting pressure on the United States administration to seek Iranian and Syrian help in Iraq in order to spare the country a civil war that many believe has become imminent.
ربما هي زيارة تعكس الجانب المضيء في العلاقات العراقية الإيرانية المتوترة كثيرا.
Iraq's President Jalal Talibani's visit to Iran may help improve the deteriorating relationship between the two countries. The visit, which comes in the context of ongoing indirect talks between Washington and Tehran, carries important political implications. It reiterates the American and British position regarding the role that Iran can play in restoring security and stability to the war-torn region. London and Washington said that Iran can intervene, but in a positive way, to help restore security and stability in Iraq. This is not the first time that Talibani plays the role of the mediator between the US and Iran. Talibani, who was an opposition leader during the reign of the former Iraqi regime, has often shuttled between the two countries on diplomatic missions. Both Iran and Iraq will benefit from a strong relationship which may reflect positively on the entire region, a climate that Washington wants to create in order to promote democracy and complete its project dubbed the Great Middle East. The US administration, which is facing setbacks in Iraq, does not have much choice but to cooperate with Iran. The US administration, which fears that Iran will fill in the vacuum should the occupation forces withdraw from Iraq, has announced that it will cooperate but cautiously with Iran. Tehran, which has vowed repeatedly not to give up its nuclear program, hinted that it's willing to help the US and Britain in Iraq if they withdraw their forces from the region.
استعدادها مساعدة الولايات المتحدة وبريطانيا إذا انسحبتا من العراق. نجاح محمد علي، العربية.
The weapon that was found in the hands of members of the Lebanese Forces Party brings to mind their dark history.
يموت الزمار وأصابعه تلعب.
The perpetrator is still around. He was a medical student, but later led a convoy of death and controversy during the funeral procession for Pierre Gemayel. Jaja was talking the talk but not walking the walk. Nothing can be done because the nature of this perpetrator is very dark. A few days after the theatrical display of sadness by the March 14th leaders, the Lebanese Army intelligence found dozens of members from the Lebanese Forces Party training with weapons in Jerut Kisarwal. The detained individuals were transported to the Lebanese Army intelligence headquarters for investigation before proper measures were taken against them. This is not the first time that members of the Lebanese Forces Party carried out military trainings, but the timing of these trainings raises questions about the real intentions of the Lebanese Forces Party. This comes as students who belong to the Lebanese Forces Party made comparative statements similar to the statements that were made by some political officials. Investigations confirmed that some acts of disturbances that were carried out against the National Liberal Party following the assassination of Minister Gemayel were carried out by members of the Lebanese Forces Party, not the Falange Party. The Manar newspaper in occupied Palestine reported that Jaja introduced sabotage groups in Lebanon to carry out assassinations and acts of chaos inside the country. The same newspaper pointed out that these cells were trained in Israel and were recently sent to Lebanon to serve the American and Israeli agendas. Some may view this news report as important news, but others would not. However, if we were to look back at what happened in the past, we would not be surprised by what is taking place now. Here is a brief history. Tony Frangia, Danny Shamon, Rashid Karami, the 4 Iranian diplomats, the Safra massacre, the Church of Mrs. Najat, and most recently, Pierre Gemayel's assassination, which has the fingerprints of the Lebanese Forces Party. Now, since we know the history of this party, will any propaganda work to improve the image of this wise killer?
The head of the Future Bloc in Parliament, MP Saad al-Hariri, said he had proof that he and MP Walid Jumblat were on the assassination list. In an interview with the Egyptian daily Al-Ahram, Hariri said Industry Minister Pierre Gemayel's assassination was executed to foil the creation of an international court to try the perpetrators of his father's murder and all the other killings which have happened in nearly 2 years. Hariri warned Sanura's government could fall with the killing of one more minister. The head of the Future Bloc added that the March 14 coalition were not afraid of early elections, but of assassinations. The Sassine Square in Ashrafiyeh looked close to a war arena yesterday night when around 2,000 supporters of the Free Patriotic Movement and the Lebanese forces stood opposed, trading insults and throwing glass bottles at each other. The clash erupted as FPM members gathered in the square to place back the pictures of MP Michel Aoun and the flags of the Free Patriotic Movement, which were removed following the assassination of Industry Minister Pierre Gemayel. When FPM members began raising pictures of their leader at around 9:30, they were countered by Lebanese forces supporters, and both camps started verbally attacking each other. Army commandos and riot police dispersed the crowd 2 hours later, and there was no immediate word on any casualties. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan said the UN would work all the way to create an international court to try suspects into the killing of Rafi al-Hariri. In an interview with the Hayat Daily, Annan said the court must be ready to undertake trial before the investigations were over. Annan also commented on the attitude of the Syrian regime vis-à-vis the court and reiterated that the UN would proceed as it deems necessary to create the court. Annan also said he spoke with Prime Minister Fouad al-Sanyura and discussed the next steps to be taken by the Lebanese government. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said Iran would do whatever it could to help provide security to Iraq. Amid warnings, the country was on the brink of civil war. The White House, acknowledging violence in Iraq was in a new phase, said the issue of talking to Iran and Syria about Iraq was likely to be raised at a meeting this week between President George W. Bush and Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. Iranian officials have said an invitation was extended to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, but that no response came from Damascus, which is to host a meeting of Iraqi religious leaders, including Grand Ayatollah Ali Sistani and cleric Muqtada Sadr. Sarah Khouri has the details.
The United States is facing calls to engage Tehran to help end the bloodshed in Iraq, which UN Secretary General Kofi Annan said had pushed the country closer to civil war. US President George W. Bush and Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki are due to meet in Jordan on Wednesday. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad made his pledge to help Iraq at the start of a visit to Iran by Iraqi President Jalal Talibani, whose trip was delayed because of a curfew imposed after Thursday's bombing in a Shiite Muslim stronghold of Baghdad, which killed 202 people. The curfew was lifted on Monday. Ahmadinejad said the Iranian nation and the government will definitely stand beside their brother Iraq, and any help the government and nation of Iran can give to strengthen security in Iraq will be given. Talibani said he would discuss improving ties between the neighbors, which fought an 8-year war in the 1980s. For his part, UN Chief Kofi Annan, making a rare comment on the situation, said he believed Iraq was nearly in civil war, something Iraqi and US politicians have refused to say despite mounting deaths. King Abdullah of Jordan, who will host the summit between Maliki and Bush, said something dramatic must come out of it because Iraq was beginning to spiral out of control. The New York Times said a draft report to be debated by the Iraq Study Group co-chaired by former Secretary of State James Baker, and which is preparing eagerly awaited proposals on a new direction in Iraq, would urge an aggressive regional diplomatic initiative to include direct talks with Iran and Syria. The group's recommendations will be sent to the White House, which is considering a change in strategy in Iraq to allow it to start pulling out some of its 140,000 troops.
The Hamas government was dismissive of Prime Minister Ehud Olmert's offer to consider an exchange of Palestinian prisoners for abducted IDF soldier Gilad Shalit. However, the idea was welcomed by Palestinian relatives of detainees. The European Union held a second day of talks with Israel and its Arab neighbors today, encouraged about prospects for peace following a ceasefire in Gaza. Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni said Jerusalem would like to see more steps from the Palestinians in order to expand the ceasefire to the West Bank. Egyptian Foreign Minister Ahmed Abdul-Rayh, representing Arab countries at the summit, urged Israel and the Palestinians to seize the moment and move the peace process forward. He also criticized Israel's nuclear program.
When Chairman Abbas is working now in trying to establish or to form a new government within the Palestinian Authority, the idea or his need is that part or the outcome of this kind of a meeting will be the release of prisoners. And he, as the other Palestinians, understand that Israel cannot release prisoners as long as Gilad Shalit, our abducted soldier, is in captivity.
The issue of the Israeli nuclear capability is endangering the whole stability of the Middle East. And we cannot imagine everybody is focused on the so-called an Iranian nuclear file, while there is, in the midst of that region, a nuclear-capable Israel. So that has to be energetically pursued, and Israel has to join and adhere to the NPT.
U.S. President George W. Bush arrives in the region tomorrow evening. Jordan's King Abdullah will host a summit between Bush and Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. Today, Bush was in Estonia before traveling to Latvia for a gathering of NATO members. The American leader said his main message today was one of freedom to the countries that have chosen the road of democracy and do not yield to the pressure of some of their neighbors. Bush singled out Syria and Iran for trying to undermine fledgling democracies in the Middle East.
When you see a young democracy beginning to emerge in the Middle East, the extremists try to defeat its emergence. That's why you see violence in Lebanon. There's a young democracy in Lebanon run by Prime Minister Sonora, and that government is being undermined, in my opinion, by extremist forces encouraged out of Syria and Iran.
In other news from the region, the Lebanese cabinet has sent to President Emil Lahoud a draft proposal on an international tribunal to try the killers of former Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. Lahoud has said he will not endorse that agreement. The move will likely heighten tension between pro-Western and pro-Syrian forces in the strife-torn country, which were only made worse by the assassination last week of Christian Interior Minister Pierre Gemayel. Riot police and soldiers were deployed in Beirut's Christian quarter yesterday after hundreds of angry protesters from both sides clashed with each other. Former Prime Minister Ehud Barak today testified before the Vinograd Committee investigating the Second Lebanon War. Barak served as Prime Minister when Israel withdrew from South Lebanon in the year 2000. Barak was asked tough questions about Israeli security deployment during and after the pullout.
أذربيجان دولة إسلامية تقع في منطقة جبال القوقاز.
Azerbaijan is an Islamic state located in the area of the Caucasus Mountains on the western coast of the Caspian Sea. After being a part of the former Soviet Union for a period of nearly 70 years, it gained independence in 1991. Many civilizations, one after the other, came to Azerbaijan because of its strategic location and its rich resources in the Caspian Sea. The following report sheds light on the history and civilization of this country.
Azerbaijan's glorious history is intertwined with the beautiful natural surroundings and majestic scenes. Azerbaijan is considered the oldest country in the world. Its history goes back to the beginning of human existence, which began 1.5 million years ago. It includes the caves of the Azekh, the third oldest human inhabited area in the world. Azerbaijan is an Islamic state located in the area of the Caucasus Mountains on the western coast of the Caspian Sea. It was ruled by the Persian Emperor Atropatene, whose base was in Tabriz. Islam reached Azerbaijan during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab. From the 11th century until the 13th century AD, a large number of Turkish tribes migrated to Azerbaijan. They mixed with the Persians who were living in the area. These people were the Azeris' ancestors. At the beginning of the 16th century AD, Azerbaijan came under the control of the Safavid Empire, which controlled Iran. Then the leadership of Azerbaijan changed from the Safavids to the Ottoman Turks in the 19th century. The former Soviet Union created many changes in the country, dominating Azeri life and establishing a strong communist government which tried to limit the effect of Islam in the republic. In 1991, Azerbaijan gained independence. The area known as the Nagorno-Karabakh became unstable and a source of conflict between Azerbaijan and its neighbor Armenia arose. This conflict led to the forced migration of hundreds of thousands of people from both sides until the fight ended in 1994. Azerbaijan is 680,000 square kilometers and has a population of about 80 million. Most of the country lies in the Asian continent. However, the northern portion of Azerbaijan is considered part of Europe. An estimated 83% of the residents of Azerbaijan are originally Azeri. Armenians and Russians make up 5% of the population. Azerbaijan, known as the Land of Fire, is considered a major strategic area, especially to the west. It has large oil reserves in the Caspian Sea, which is being exploited by Western companies. Washington considers Azerbaijan strategically important because it separates Russia from Iran on its northern border and Iran from Russia on its southern. When the former Azeri president Haidar Aliyev, who governed the country for 3 decades, died, his son Ilham Aliyev succeeded him last October to complete the Azeri path.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Feyerdahl Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.